Welcome, everybody, to Come Back to Love. I'm Robin Vogel, and I am your host of this radio show, and we are on Dream Vision's 7 radio network. Welcome to new listeners. Welcome to those that have been coming and listening each week. We're on the air live every Thursday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Come Back to Love is the radio show where we explore the journeys of healing, connection, and transformation in love and relationships. I'm your host again, Robin Vogel. I'm a love and intimacy coach, and I am the creator of Heal Your Heart. Join me as I share stories, tools, and insights to help you rewrite your love story, whether it's about overcoming heartbreak, unraveling old patterns, or reigniting the spark in your current relationship. Together, we'll explore how love begins within and expands from there. You can tune in again every Thursday at 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can listen also on your mobile device, in your car, or simply ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 radio. In each episode, I welcome incredible guests who bring their unique perspective and expertise to help us dive into topics like self-compassion, healing childhood wounds, and creating the love we all desire and deserve. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by special guest Amanda Short. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and join us for this heart-centered transformational conversation. Let's explore how you can come back to love, starting with the relationship that matters the most, the one with yourself. I'm so glad you're here and welcome to the show. Thank you, Amanda. So great to have you.
Thanks for
I,
having me.
you are so welcome. I'm just going to let our listeners know that you are someone that I know from my local community. And before we got started on the air, I was saying what a treasure it is to be able to have this time. Actually, we know each other, but we don't know each other that well. And I'm fascinated and curious and have been witnessing from a distance a bit over the last couple of years. And so it's not only an opportunity for you to share some of your life journey and wisdom as a result with our listeners, but also I have the honor of getting to know you better, which I'm really happy about. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
excited.
yeah, so I want to start from the beginning. And when I asked you to send me some information about yourself, you shared something that I'm going to let you share it. Actually, it felt really um, wow, just like really kind of intense and also poignant to hear. And I, yeah, I'm very, very curious to dive into this topic of what your life was like. I think that's the right question, like how you grew up. Sounds like you grew up in Alabama. That's the one thing that's straightforward. Alabama in the US, in the South. And yeah, so what would you like to share about your life growing up? What was it like? I think you had a pretty unique experience.
Um, I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church in Huntsville, Alabama. I
Mm.
was there every time the doors were open.
You were there every
Uh,
time the doors were open?
every time the doors were open, every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday
Oh, in the
night.
church. Oh, got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So it was a huge part of my life. I was brought up by my grandmother, and that was our whole lifestyle. We actually lived right next door to a church.
Oh,
So I just walked right on
perfect.
over. I feel like I was partly raised by the church. So it was a
Yeah.
huge, it was all I really ever knew, and it really formed the way I saw the world and made all my decisions. And I was kind of, raised in a bubble, and I didn't really know there was much else outside of that.
Right. Okay, so here's little Amanda. And those, not everybody can see you, only those watching the video, but you're just adorable with this beautiful curly hair. And so you were born in Alabama, raised by your grandmother,
Hmm.
and she was Southern Baptist. And I love what you said, like the way you said it. I was there every time the doors were open. It took me a minute to really hear what you were saying. Like you lived and breathed the church, and it was right next door, so that made it pretty easy, I guess. Was it only you and your grandmother? Were there other siblings or family members?
Yeah, in the household, it was just me and my grandmother.
Mhm.
And I had an uncle that was very influential in my life who lived down the road in the same town. And he and his wife had a big influence on me. And
Mm.
they joined the Quiverfull movement. Um, and so they had a big influence and they taught me like this is the way, you know.
Mm.
So it was like next level up from Southern Baptist Christianity. It was like we take the Bible literally and they take like very specific Bible verses and form a whole other subculture um,
Oh,
out
wow.
of it.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So yeah, so
yeah,
we're going to get to that in a minute because it sounds like that has some information to it. And also I know that it was um, the background or the actual story of something that was a documentary that was created that we'll talk about in a moment. I'm curious what that was like to grow up um, with just your grandmother in this community, but I'm guessing you also had like a lot of community around you in the church, yeah? Or
yeah. It was it was challenging to see like a lot of kind of normal families like with a mom and a dad and siblings or whatever. And
yeah,
I was home alone a lot. Um, and there was a lot of seemingly healthy families in the community that I was a part of, but I always kind of felt like something was missing, like not having a father was really hard.
right.
Um, and so I feel like I kind of always idolized, a traditional family. It's something that it was like a goal that I had, like to have that and create that for myself.
We have that in common, which is really interesting. I was just talking about that recently about myself. I mean, my story is different, very different. And I had two parents for 10 years, and then my mother died. And then I was raised by my dad, and I had a sibling, but because of all of the things that happened that were so different than what it seemed like everybody else had, I yeah, it's something that I also have held as something I've wanted to create or have in my life to rebalance what I felt like I really wanted that everybody else had. Yeah,
Hmm.
I totally understand that from my
Yeah,
my side of the story. Yeah, different.
right.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah. So how has that gone so far? I know you have lovely son, two children, three. I can't
I
remember.
have four. I have
Four.
four
Oh my
children.
goodness. I think I never remember that people have four children because I really can't honestly believe that one woman could give birth to four children. So
Yeah, it's
I
a lot of
block it out.
children.
I know there's plenty who do it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a lot.
Wow. And how old are they now?
They're 16, 17, 19, and 22. So I have two at home still.
Right. 16, 17, 19, and 22. Wow. Yeah, you're still in the thick of raising teenagers.
Yeah,
That's a whole story in and of itself.
right.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So what happened? So what happened? Tell me more about your childhood. There's a big story here. We've got everybody on the edge of
Yeah.
their seats. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. I ended up, long story short, I ended up going and living with this uncle when I was 16.
Hmm.
Um, and he had a wife and they had like three kids at the time. And so I kind of was able to get like the family experience, like the traditional family experience. And I felt really honored to be a part of that. And just to get to see what that was like. Like things like having dinner around the table together at night was like a huge deal to me because I
Yeah.
didn't have that growing up.
Right.
So, and I had kind of gone through a period of rebellion a couple of years before that. And that's why I ended up living with them. And they were like this really good Christian family. And they kind of took me under their wing. And basically, I was like sold out, for God at that point. like officially,
Hmm.
and
What does
just
that
really
mean?
committed.
Committed. Hmm.
I really committed, to just like live my entire life for God.
Hmm.
Like every part of it was committed to living out my Christian faith as best I could at
Hmm.
that point.
Yeah.
Um, and so I ended up getting married at 18
Mm.
was kind of the next big thing. To another a guy who was also raised in the church the same kind of
Mhm.
way, and
Makes sense.
everything everything seemed okay at first. And when most people would like live together, like they're going off to college or something, maybe they would live together. Like that was an absolute no-no. Like we couldn't live together. Like we had to get married. That was just the culture there.
Right. Makes
It
sense.
was it was an unacceptable thing to do. So we just got married.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then 2 years in, my husband's best friend died suddenly, and he was really traumatized by that. This guy was like a brother to him, and he didn't have good coping skills, so he turned to alcohol and never stopped drinking, and it's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that began a really, really rough path for both of us.
And you had had some kids by then.
We had one kid by then. Yeah. I had my first when I was 20, and it was, yeah, like very close. The time frame was very close. His friend passing away to us
Wow.
having our first
Wow.
child. And
So hard.
yeah, and so then life was getting real, and
Mhm.
I didn't know how to cope with that. I know now, like, about listening to your body and all of that, like
Yeah.
how wise our body is. Like I
Yes.
remember my body screaming at me like this is wrong, like this is all so wrong, and just not understanding and not knowing that I couldn't leave. I couldn't get a divorce. Like that was culturally the culture we lived in, like that was not going to be accepted by
Mm.
anyone in my life.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So you stayed. And I love how you just gave us a little fast forward to like, this is what I know now, because of course we're getting there in the telling of your story, um,
Yeah.
which is so poignant and yeah, really touching my heart. And I love how you leaped forward and was like, okay, this is what I know now. And I think that you also demonstrate and teach some of these things and help other people. So we'll get to that. So thank you for that fast forward flash to the present. But yeah, wow, that sounds pretty intense. And I can't even, I can only imagine really what that was like it sounds like feeling trapped without a choice. I don't know if that's how you
Right.
felt, but
Yeah, very much so. I felt very much trapped, and I had started this family. I wanted to keep it intact, but I was very unhappy with the circumstances. I
sure.
also, I couldn't go to college. I kind of wanted to go to college, but I didn't have the support. Like my ex-husband, there's no way he
Mm,
would have supported me. And
mm,
then just like I read a lot of books back then that my relatives that were in this movement gave me, and it was very clear, like a woman's role is to be a wife and to be a mother and period.
mm.
Like that is,
That's it.
I think they would go so far as to say that's what women were created for, is just having babies and supporting these men. I mean, it was really a distorted, you know.
Distorted view. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just really kind of brainwashed in a sense. Like I was so immersed in this world, like everyone around me, none of the women worked. They were all stay-at-home moms. They all homeschooled their kids. We home churched at that point. Like
Oh, wow.
it was extreme.
Wow.
Like the church I was brought up in was like too worldly.
Oh,
So
wow. I have
we
never heard that expression, home churched. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So I was involved in home churches, homeschooling. Like I
Yeah.
remember one time thinking about putting my kids in public school, And my uncle, his wife said, I mean, how could you do that to your children? Like I was like scolded at even thinking about it because I was trying to think of like, okay, how can I work? Like I might need to work.
Right, right. Oh my goodness. And so this community that you referred to a couple of times, can you say more about that? Was that the like a subculture that came out of the Southern Baptist to focus more on the word of the Bible or
Yeah, I mean, I was just told that the Bible is to be taken literally, and then there's these select verses that they would teach you about. And I was taken to this Bill Gothard seminar like every year as I was growing up, and that's what that documentary on Amazon Prime goes over is like that was a cult. Like I watched that on Amazon Prime, and I was like, oh my God, like I was taken to that every single year
oh
from
wow.
my childhood, like every year growing up. And so I was like conditioned to believe all these things. And I didn't know how much corruption was in that organization.
Can we say the name of the Amazon Prime show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Shining Happy People.
Yeah, I'm guessing some of our listeners have or are aware of it. I don't know when it came out. I think I watched it a couple of years ago. Does that sound right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I watched it a few years ago.
yeah. Wow. So that documentary on Amazon Prime is about this community, and you used to go every once a year to like be immersed.
Yeah. Yeah. They have these big, like week-long seminars, and they
Mm,
teach the kids, they teach the teenagers and the adults, and they really get everybody on the same page about
yes.
all this stuff.
Wow.
And when that's all you're ever taught from your childhood, you don't even, and you're so sheltered, like you
Mhm.
may not know there's anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially if you're homeschooled and you're home churched and you're like you said, you had a bubble around you and yeah. And at some point you had a family that you felt like, oh, I have a family now with meals around the table, and that probably felt really good to experience. So, and like you said, it was all you knew. And it certainly sounds like it was all you were told. Were you allowed to watch TV? Because I'm just thinking about all the influences of the media.
Not really. I mean, I guess you could. Like, we didn't have a TV when I lived at my uncle's house. We would maybe watch like VHS tapes or something. But
Yes.
there was no news. Like, I didn't watch the news as an adult either. And I would like my kids would watch, like pre-recorded things, but like we didn't really watch TV now.
Mm. So actually, let's give our listeners a time frame of these years. What were these years when you were like, what was the time frame? Which decade are we talking about when you were living with your uncle, for example?
Like the mid 90s,
Okay.
like 90, 95 to 99 or
Okay.
so.
And then with your
Yeah.
husband
And I
was,
got married 2000.
yeah, okay. So the
Yeah.
first decade of the 2000s. Yeah,
Yeah.
2000 to 2010. Okay. All right. Yeah, so I'm so curious. Um, Before we take a commercial break, could you just give us like a little introduction to like obviously something big happened. I mean, besides that your husband started drinking and there was addiction and you had three more kids after that, but you're here, you're not there anymore.
Right.
And I imagine you're wildly different than you were. And
Mhm.
something happened. Can you drop in a little like one
I
minute
mean,
scenario and we'll come back to it, the full story after our break?
yeah, it didn't seem that big at the time, but my grandmother had a friend who needed her house cleaned, and she suggested like, "Hey, why don't you go clean this lady's house once a week?" And so it was kind of a loophole in the not working thing because it was like, well, it's just like a few hours, one day a week.
Right.
So it kind of could go under the radar, and it didn't really count as like being a working mom. So I
Right.
started,
You're helping. Yeah.
yeah, I started cleaning houses and just one by one, I started cleaning more houses. And eventually I ended up having a decent size cleaning business. My ex-husband came to work for me at my cleaning business because
While you were married.
I could pay him more money working in my cleaning business than he was making in his job. So, um, And then I ended up
Wow.
having like 8 employees. And so then I became the breadwinner basically,
Wow.
um, just over a period of years.
Wow. Okay. I want to leave everybody with that cliffhanger, so we will be right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Wow. Welcome back to Come Back to Love Radio. So glad to be here with Amanda Short. I'm, as I said during our break, I'm so grateful to be hearing this and I guess also giving this opportunity for you to share your story with so many people. There's going to be thousands of people that hear this all around the world, actually. And before I say some more about that, let's go back to the way I'm going to reframe it just for a moment. The way the universe dropped in an opportunity for you. And it makes me curious about your grandmother. Like, was she nudging you in a direction? From what you said earlier, it sounds like she wouldn't be, but she gave you this opportunity to help a friend. It all seemed like above board because, it wasn't really working. It was helping a friend of your grandmother, it was a family friend. That all seems very, kind of in line and benevolent and all of that. But it sounds like you did it and then you turned it into this massive opportunity. Like, that's
Mhm.
amazing. And my perspective in listening, I don't know about your grandmother in that piece, but it feels like the universe just like dropped in this little crack, loophole, I think you said, and you stepped right through. That,
Yeah.
yeah. And how old were you?
Gosh, maybe 25 I can't, I have to think about it.
Yeah, but
Maybe a little
anyway, around
older.
that young, young.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was going on in your mind? Like, how did you start? I mean, working wasn't okay. So,
Right.
woman, how did that happen that suddenly you're
Well,
the breadwinner and your husband
I
starts working
know.
for you? And
We were so poor,
Mhm.
Robin. Like we needed that. I think I got paid like $125, and you've never seen somebody more thrilled to work all day long to make $125. Like it was a big deal for me.
Wow.
And it was just such a slow unfolding of like getting another house and then another house and then another house. And it was a very slow process. And it was just like it happened before I really realized what was happening.
Mm.
Um, and I was homeschooling my children at the time, and I was still able to keep up with homeschooling my kids
Mhm.
and my church attendance and everything. And nobody really seemed to be saying anything. It was just the universe giving me a path to follow. And I just kept
Yes.
walking down that path.
Wow. Wow. So you became the breadwinner.
Hmm.
Husband started working for you. You had this
Yeah.
thriving business in Huntsville, Alabama. So wow again. This is the making of a book for sure and a movie. So little plug for that. Um, in years to come, we can say, remember when we did that podcast? That radio show? Um, so what happened that you left? Like
Um,
what happened next?
well, I opened up a savings account and I just started like stuffing money as much as I could in there, to try and like come up with a plan to be able to get myself out um, of living with my ex-husband because it was just what shifted for me was when my girls started getting older. I think my oldest daughter was like 12, and I started to see, the reason I stayed besides my like loyalty to God or whatever was because I wanted to protect my kids from growing up without a father. That was a big deal because I didn't have a father. So,
Sure.
and he would
Right.
threaten me. He would say, "Your kids are going to grow up without a father if you leave me." And he was like, sticking the knife in really deep there. And I had a really hard time with that. I just couldn't leave him. And but when my oldest daughter was turning 12, I noticed I had this realization that living with this man is causing more damage to them. It's showing I have three daughters and a son. It's showing them, you know, how a woman is supposed to be treated. Like that's what's going to set the bar for them.
Right.
And I realized like, wow, this is really harmful. It's harmful for my son to see. It's harmful for my daughters.
Yeah.
So that was when I had a big shift because I could just really comprehend what was going on
Oof, I have the
for my
chills. Yeah.
kids. Yeah.
Mhm. So what did you do? You started stuffing money into a savings account. Apparently nobody knew about it, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. We had a joint account and then, I just opened up my own account and started saving. And then eventually so the way you can understand about Christians is like the only way you can get a divorce according to the Bible is if your spouse is cheating on you.
right, right, right,
So
right.
I had to like catch him cheating on me. It was
Ah,
like the only way that I could have like a legal out or whatever was, you
wow.
know, to
Yeah.
find that out. And so I did eventually find that out. And there were some other things that happened just that I was able to make peace in my own heart
Hmm.
with separating from him
Hmm.
just after that many years.
Yeah.
So, but I did find out, there was infidelity. So, like, if any of the Christian people were going to judge me and ask about it, like,
You had
I,
your
I had the thing I needed.
had
Yeah.
the thing you needed, a seal of approval. Wow. So you were able to get divorced and get out of there and get out of Alabama. Did you move up to the Northeast right away or?
No, I waited a few years, but
Mhm.
it was really good to put some physical distance between me and my ex-husband because we were still living in the same city and
Right.
there was a lot of discomfort being in the same city with him. And so
Sure.
when I had the opportunity to move here to Boston, it was great. It was just another, like the universe guided me here, not something I ever would have expected to happen, but
Wow.
I'm really grateful to
Wow.
be
Yeah.
here.
So you brought your four kids with you.
Brought my four kids with me.
Goodness. Wow. And how old are they? They must have been pretty young because the youngest one now.
We're in our fifth year here.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
okay.
so
So,
they weren't too young.
yeah, so this is all even that's pretty recent. Wow.
Yeah, and I started college
Good
just
for
before
you.
coming here. So I'm about to graduate now with my bachelor's degree in project management from Northeastern. At
Congratulations.
42 years old,
All
yeah.
right. That's hey, whatever it takes.
Right.
Good for
Yeah, and then
you.
three of my four kids are in college. My oldest is about to graduate too. She's going to beat me by a semester.
Oh,
But I'm so thrilled. Like that's all I've ever wanted for them is just to get their education and be able to take care of themselves and never be like at the mercy of someone else's like terrible decisions or, like
mm,
they can take care of themselves.
yes.
That's one lesson that they are
Yes.
taking away from me.
That's beautiful. And yeah, I wonder if you have any more. Sometimes when we look back, before we get into what you're doing now in your life, which I'm excited to talk about, part of our growth and our evolution emotionally, spiritually is to, and it's not that easy to do, but to be able to look and say, okay, I had this experience. It was really, really challenging. That might be putting it mildly for some of you listening, and even in my own life. Um, but to be able to go back and sort of find those golden nuggets, like find those the teachings or the wisdom or the gifts in difficult situations. And I wonder where you are in that journey.
Um, One thing I've learned from way back when I was really deep into the like church homeschool culture is I was very judgmental
Mm.
of other women, especially women that worked full time, women that put their kids in public school,
Hmm.
women that were single mothers. Like, there's just kind of a general attitude like, what did they do? They must have done something
Ah,
or not been a good wife or something like, it's just like I'm kind of disgusted to look back at how my mind used to few other women, and I think something that I've been allowed to experience is all of those scenarios that I was judging. So now I'm such a different person. I have so much compassion,
Mm.
especially for women and mothers working or
Yes.
whatever. Like I'm full of compassion because the universe put me in every single situation that I had a judgment towards. And
Oh,
I'm grateful. I'm so grateful
mm,
that I have that compassion now that I didn't have.
right. Wow. That's beautiful. And you also mentioned the one about your kids and like giving them an education and making sure that they have the capacity to take care of themselves and,
Yeah.
witness you and your, striving for your own growth, like at 42, graduating from college. That's awesome. It's all so many amazing gifts for your children to witness. And honestly, the strength of leaving and what you did, I don't know if your children know all the details of you tucking away money and the things that you needed to do to leave, but I'm assuming someday they will know the whole story. Well, they're going to listen to this podcast, of course. They'll know the whole story soon. um, but honestly, like that shows such a strength and a clarity of mind and heart to have left something so pervasive in your life that you could barely see outside of it until you could, and then you saw the opportunity. I was like, oh wait, and that takes a lot. That takes a lot of strength to uh, to overcome and to have such a big transformation. So speaking of transformation, um, tell us about your life now. I mean, it's so different than what you've described. You
Yeah, well,
any aspect of it that you want to talk about?
yeah, when I left the Christian church, I really missed the community aspects of it and having people around me. And then I moved here to Boston right around the time that COVID happened. And so I was in isolation, like so many people were. And I was really looking for a community. And the universe brought me to Common Street Spiritual Center in Natick,
Mhm.
which it's a very unique spiritual center that it's a love-centered community, and there's no requirement of believing any type of anything really.
Right.
And so it's the perfect place for me. I really appreciate that. Just the whole thing and all the people. And so that's where I've kind of made my spiritual home and
Mm.
been given the gift of being able to be in spiritual community without all the stuff that I had growing up, and all the judgment and all of these crazy requirements
Right.
that I had to live with. But I met my partner Jason there,
Mhm.
which
That's,
was such a wonderful gift. And
yes.
we made a home together, lived together, and he's helping me with the kids and the dogs, and we do a lot of community events together. Um, and I have to give him so much credit because he's done so much personal growth for so many years before he ever met me. But when I came into this relationship, I had a tremendous amount of shame that I was carrying for all the trauma that my kids have experienced in their life, just due to my history. And he just really, really held space for that and has helped me heal, you
Mm,
know.
that's beautiful. That makes me cry.
Yeah, and me too. I mean, he's helped
Yeah.
me like just see the value of my story and that
Hmm.
they're okay.
Hmm. Yes. Yes. Oh, my first radio episode where two of us are crying. And probably some of our listeners too. That's so beautiful. I mean, what a gift for to have the masculine energy, the presence. I happen to know Jason for those listening, and yes, all the work that he did in his life to prepare for you, and then for him to have the capacity, which if we just step out for a moment into like the sort of the tantric polarities of divine masculine and divine feminine, he has that energy that he brought to you to hold space, which is very much the divine masculine, which
Yes.
allowed you to explore whatever it is you wanted to explore. In this case, the shame you were holding, which is, thank you for sharing that. And it sounds like really having the space to heal a lot or all of it. Um, in the container of your relationship, which is so, so beautiful.
Hmm.
That's really, that's so profound and really special. I think that that's not always the case in relationship. As someone who's
Right.
done a lot of couples therapy work with couples over 20 years, I strive to teach couples when I've been in those spaces about how to do that. And, it's possible and sometimes it's not. Yeah.
Right.
So that's amazing. And you have the family that you have been yearning for and wanting. I'm assuming you have some meals at your kitchen table together.
We do. We definitely do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a really sweet life together, and I feel like I've just started to kind of sort of blossom as a woman in ways
Yes.
I was never able to.
Yes. 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 It sounds like you were blossoming as a woman, um, in kind of survival mode, trying to get out of,
Yeah.
and then what I'm feeling energetically is like when you landed in the relationship, then you could blossom more as well, but and relax into it.
Yes.
Whereas that contrast between like survival mode and relaxing into it, like very different energies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been also bringing your gifts to other women, and I love what you said about moving from the judgment that you were taught. You were taught black and white. You were taught this is right, this is wrong, yes, no, like very, very strictly. So of course you had judgment. And now bringing yourself into community at the spiritual center, um, and having the community, and then noticing that you're not actually judging women, you're having a lot of compassion for
Hmm.
the experiences that they've had. And so how are you bringing some of your skills and your gifts into the world like in a tangible way with women
Yeah.
actually?
Yeah. One thing I'm doing is hosting goddess gatherings and just bringing
Mhm.
women together, um, for various, based on various themes every month. Um,
Give us an
and just
example of a
really,
theme.
well, like last month, we broke into groups and we shared something difficult in our lives with
Mhm.
each, group of two, and then we wrote down on a post-it note like how are we going to show up for ourselves in a more compassionate way, a more loving and compassionate way with whatever this issue is. And we
Mhm.
put it on the altar. We put our little sticky note on the altar, and then we took turns, and someone else picked up our sticky note and took it with them home to put it on like their mirror or something so like we can hold each other,
Mm.
you know,
That's beautiful.
um, say a prayer for each other and just to know that we're in community holding each other. We're not alone.
Yeah, that's so huge. It's like there's words, we can just say them to be held in community and we're not alone. And then if we just pause for a moment, it's it's so, so big to know that we're not alone.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because as you know, a lot of people are struggling with feeling alone, feeling,
Yeah,
I want to say being alone, but it's not quite because we're never really alone,
right.
but it can feel that way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
important to me to create spaces where women can be vulnerable and really speak up about what's really happening for them. That's because I was a woman that would go into spaces and that was not going to be accepted. That wasn't it was there was no invitation to like really share what's really going on for me, and women need that. And so I want to provide that for them, and if you
Yes.
have something heavy, then bring it to my circle. That's okay.
Yes. That is so amazing. It is so important to have those sacred spaces. And I feel so blessed to be one who also, made my way to community for some similar reasons. Different flavor, but for some similar reasons. And and have these sacred spaces and sacred circles and connection. And I know that there are thousands of people listening to this that hear the words like in community. And because I've had people say it to me directly, they'll say, like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what you mean when you say in community. I take
Mhm.
it for granted because I have so much community in my life.
Hmm.
And I'm so grateful. So I'm not only taking it for granted, I feel very blessed, but it takes a village to raise
Hmm.
ourselves, never mind our children.
Right. That's true.
Yes. And so, yeah, you've created these small villages and have given women and yourself space to just be who you are, bring whatever is going on. Nothing is unacceptable here. Come into
Hmm.
the space and basically let us love you up is feels like the message to each person coming in, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to take that and say for those listening that, you can create a goddess circle, right? Like anybody can create a goddess circle.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
it's true.
Gather women,
Yeah,
create a little exercise or just a sharing circle.
right. It's powerful.
It's really powerful. It reminds me of a little story, which I'll share. I grew up on Long Island in New York, and I had five really close friends all through, starting some of them like in third grade, and then others joined at different times. Yeah. And we were known as like Rockville Center is the town I grew up in, and it was like the initials are RVC. So we were known as like the RVC girls when the six of us went to other communities, mostly Jewish communities, and people, oh, there's the RVC girls. And we were really close. We had other friends, but we were really close. And then college came and some of us went here and there. And, we stayed kind of in touch and we came back, but we weren't as close. And then I started doing some women's empowerment work, which is exactly what you're doing with other women, in my early 30s. And it changed every particle of my being changed, honestly, from stepping into that
Mm.
space similar to the one that you just described. This was a 2 year, very structured experience. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And changed me completely. But one of the things that also changed was that I understood that I could sit in circle with women and hold space, just like you described, and share from my heart and listen to others' hearts. And it was like, oh my God, oh my goodness. I mean, the depth of the intimacy and the feeling and the elation of being real with each other. I mean, it was nothing short of a miracle in my world at
Mm.
that time. And we did this thing called talking stick, which is probably something people know. We had like an object, and comes from another tradition where you're just holding an object, and if you're holding it, you're the one speaking. So I got together with the RVC girls. We decided to have a little reunion weekend in New York. And, people were like, let's go shopping. Let's go eat. Let's go on a run. Let's do, all things, all good things. And I was like, how about if we instead sit in a circle and have a talking stick and share with each other? And it was so scary to bring it up because I felt like, oh my God, I'm changing the whole culture of chips. And I think that's part of the reason why people don't do some of these things because it's changing the culture of what people are used to.
Hmm.
Anyway, we sat down and it opened up so much from there. And that was 25 years ago or more. And we're so close now. It opened up so much deep connection. People were blown away by the experience. Some of them shared things that happened in high school that were never talked about ever, that they just had kept secret because they were afraid.
Mm.
And one of my friends made a joke, like every time she takes the stick, she starts to cry. Like, what's with this stick? It makes you cry. It was just so beautiful, and it's just continued from there. So I share it because I want to emphasize the power of really what you're doing and what
Absolutely.
you're offering.
Yeah.
Yeah, so beautiful. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break before we finish up. Be right back. Welcome back to Come Back to Love Radio. We are just in the last few minutes of this really beautiful, heart-opening episode journey with you, Amanda. I feel like you've taken us on the journey through some of your life experiences and what's possible on the other side when there's challenge and struggle. And I wonder if you have any wisdom. Final, you have tons of wisdom. I wonder what in particular you could offer at the close of our episode today.
Well, I think we can just trust our lives to unfold and that we're guided and we're taken care of by the universe and by God,
Yeah.
and that everything's going to be okay and get
Mhm.
into community,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. Yes, get into community. That's such a big lesson to trust our lives as they unfold. I think that it can that can take some time
Mhm.
and some listening to the parts that might resist that and coming
Mhm.
back to the truth of it. Yeah, it certainly is true. It's my experience, even though I did not want to believe it when I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it fully now. Well, thank you so, so much. I feel so grateful that we chose to do this. And I'm so grateful that many, many people will be listening to your story. That is so powerful. When the book comes out, I definitely be wanting my signed copy. And we'll be saying, I knew you
Oh,
when. And yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. And thank you to
thank
everyone
you.
who's here listening. And we'll see you next week, every Thursday, 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern on Dream Vision 7 Radio. Have a beautiful day.